Despite Toriyama not consciously writing Dragon Ball with major themes in mind, his experiences or general aspects of how its plot developed caused many themes to bleed into its narrative regardless, and the Cell arc has many notable ones. There are themes such as the repercussions of the past returning, the issues created by the cast's character flaws, or leaning to the more science fiction ideas of the setting, with a focus on biological factors, though still balancing the fantastical and spiritual. The theme permeating throughout this narrative that stands out most to me though, is its focus on father-son dynamics, through 3 different pairs, Vegeta and Trunks, Goku and Gohan, as well as the less obvious one of Gero and Cell, as well as the other Jinzo Ningen, but mainly Cell. All very different relationships that allow this idea to be fully explored. Starting with that of Vegeta and Trunks that acts as one of the arc's early twists. How Trunks bonds with Vegeta has a lot to resonate with those of certain situations. One of the most interesting aspects of Trunks' role in the narrative is how it causes the audience to re-examine the Dragon Team, when viewed from the perspective of someone given an idealized narrative of them, except Yamcha, before learning how flawed they actually are, and learning how much of a selfish, egotistical person his father is, makes Vegeta the central example of this. The idea of learning about one's father at a later stage in life also allows this bond to resonate with those with estranged fathers, which makes sense when Vegeta and Burima's bond prior to the end of the arc was little more than a casual fling. Despite the two not being shown bonding much, and a lot of the scenes with them being bonds of conflict, this is what makes their bond stand out amongst these 3 examples, as Trunks mainly bonds with and learns of his father through observing him, as one wishing to gain his approval, as with many children. A subtle way this affects Trunks is shown after his Shugyo in the Room of Spirit and Time, when comparing Trunks' pragmatism towards dealing with enemies before it to him honouring Vegeta's pride, more so than rushing to defeat Cell after it. The anime expands on this, with him speaking of the love he'd gained for his father, though this is just as apparent in the manga through his actions. Of course, we also see this with Vegeta's reaction after Trunks' death, in what was him unconsciously realising the importance of his son. We see hints at the change Trunks has on Vegeta prior though, with him going out of his way to note Trunks as almost his equal, which he wouldn't do for any other with his pride, as well as Trunks showcasing his Saiyan spirit in putting his feelings aside to attack Vegeta, being something Vegeta would find more respectable than he let on, especially remembering his views on Saiyans fighting their parents. Despite these elements to make their bond both strong and unique, the flaws of it can be seen in their power by the end of the arc, as their 2 years in the Room of Spirit and Time were less beneficial than Goku or Gohan's 8 months due to their first trip, having them still trained distantly enough that there were secrets to their progress, and the second trip was entirely on their own. It's through this that we move on to Goku and Gohan, in which their manner of Shugyo and its results present the benefits of their regimen and their more healthy dynamic, as well as an improvement on the poor advice and results of Piccolo's Shugyo for Gohan back in the Saiyan arc. We see the contrast to these with Goku's method of teaching Gohan being to thoroughly go over the methodology of their Shugyo, as well as giving him positive motivation through encouragement at his efforts, and with his own desire to have Gohan surpass him. Combine this with his more effective method of mastering their ki control in the Super Saiyan state, and having a sparring partner to help him do so, unlike Vegeta or Trunks in their second trip. And we see from the level of ki alone how more of a beneficial time and bond Goku and Gohan share. This continues far beyond exiting the room though, with Goku prompting Gohan to fight Cell, despite some missteps in his plan such as not going over it with Gohan prior, which he acknowledges later. Goku doesn't force Gohan into fighting them, and instead asks him if he believes himself capable of doing so, along with placing value on Gohan's own studious activities to pursue after it regardless of how Goku views their importance compared to Shugyo. This makes it worth going over the controversial move of Goku giving Cell a senzu, some may bring up as a rebuttal to Goku's fatherly responsibilities. Leaving aside Goku's Budo principles, he has given first-hand evidence that Cell will only keep up the facade of a tournament fight, or not target the Earth as long as it's enjoying itself. A fatigued Cell would likely resort to more deadly methods such as going in for the kill with Gohan, or destroying the Earth if Gohan were to prove a threat to him too quickly, of which is shown to be true when Gohan actually surpasses him. In other words, this incident only solidifies Goku thinking critically on minimizing the factors of this scenario. And such context makes it far different from the nonsensical Moro incident many use as a comparison. The strength of his parenting continues into the climax of the arc, in which his encouragement revitalizes Gohan and brings out the key necessary to destroy Cell, in what's a display of a parent's natural duty to place their child's well-being as paramount, and make them better than themselves. It's after the climactic victory that Goku makes his decision not to return to life, and pass the torch of leading the Dragon Team in acknowledgement of his flaws. While his decision was not a foolproof one, and he would learn it to not be the best choice in the Majin Buu arc, it was understandable with the circumstances that had brought about Cell, and the role Goku played in Cell's progress, despite also being crucial for their defeat. It's through his choice that we see another side of fatherhood, beyond preparing one's child to be a better person than them, in being willing to step down for their successor when the time comes. Finally, we come to the least obvious father-son bond of Dr. Gero and his creation Cell. Though each of the Jinzo Ningen can be seen as examples of Gero's vicarious parentage, especially 16 with what new information came to light on him, Cell is arguably the one with the strongest ties to him, through it being a magnum opus of Gero's work, rather than just one of many in a line of creations, to the extent that two innovative results of his expertise were no more than pieces for Cell's completion. Cell is in some ways one completely moulded by their parent, both in the deliberate manner of their existence and their purpose being told to them by Gero's supercomputer. Much as with the other Jinzo Ningen not fully artificial though, forcing his ideals upon Cell only forced it to stray away from instructions, much as overbearing parenting can cause a child to rebel against any ideals of a parent, with Cell finding no desire to kill Son Goku purely for Gero's sake by the time of attaining their perfect form. How Cell's upbringing compares to Gohan becomes relevant as the arc goes on, despite many viewing Gohan's involvement in the arc's climax as tacked on. It's important to note there was build-up towards this, with Goku noting how important of a role Gohan may play against the Jinzo Ningen, and, more overtly, their ascension to a new state of power and consciousness mirror each other, with Gohan achieving the Super Saiyan state around the same time Cell became perfect. This helps show their confrontation as that of two children brought there by the will of their fathers, and the strong familial bond both Goku and Gohan had built together, overcoming the far more methodical and unemotive design of Gero upon his creation. It is also telling of Gohan's importance to fulfill this role, that the arc has a focus on consequences of the past being inflicted, and Cell overcoming those who comprise their being through either drawing on their flaws or surpassing them by its design. Even with Trunks being separate from this, he fails in part due to adopting a level of his father's pride, and Cell's presence in the timeline being from the failure of another Trunks. Making it fitting the one needed to overcome them was completely separate from Cell's being. The Cell arc's focus on fatherhood is also quite telling of Toriyama's own subconscious thoughts, when he had been a father for a few years at the point of writing it, and likely struggled to maintain a balance between family and work, much as Goku's Shugyo could often separate him from his family. It's likely from this that he was able to explore such an idea so coherently, despite his notable lack of planning, and having no thoughts of consciously integrating major themes into his narrative. Thank you if watching until the end of the video. If wanting to see more to do with the Cell arc, maybe you would like this video on its time travel. Or, if watching further into the future, or maybe having a time machine to get there, maybe a comparison video involving Cell.